look at. You're talking about the Mustafa bust. Nobody smashed anything.
What?
In fact, I made a deal with Mustafa. He was going to help me find out who the people were. Another thing, Inspector Moore and I weren't even there.
What the hell's he talking about?
Doesn't it bother anybody that there were no weapons found, no explosives?
We'll find him.
Meanwhile, the people are still out there, and they're going to blow hell out of half this city. And meanwhile, you're telling everybody how great we are.
All right, Callahan, button your lip. That's in order.
Captain, you want to jerk all these people off, you can, but don't do it with me.
That's it, Callahan. You just got yourself a 60-day suspension.
Make it 90.
180. Give me your star.
There's a 7-point suppository, Captain.
What did you say?
I said stick it in your ass.
Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone, and we're going to be doing a continuation of our Dirty Harry series. We're holding down the fort, and this time we're coming up with The Enforcer, a 1976 Dirty Harry film. This one was directed by James Fargo. You know, obviously it stars Clint Eastwood. This time around we have Tim Daly in there as well. The basic premise, which I just took off of IMDb, is San Francisco Inspector Dirty Harry Callahan must foil a terrorist organization made up of disgruntled Vietnam veterans, but this time he's teamed with a female partner, Inspector Kate Moore, with whom he's not too excited to be working. Now, I think that's a little bit off because there are some of them are Vietnam vets, but I don't think all of them were, right? Just I think one or two of them was like the special forces guy.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a variety of people in that group. I think that was my impression.
Yeah, because it was like a left-wing organization, but they really weren't, or at least most of them weren't real believers, and so they just wanted to do that for the money. So, and again, I want to point out, I think
that's where Die Hard picked up the trick. I'm assuming.
Okay.
Wow.
And so. These movies do, like a lot of action movies from the 80s and 90s, really owe. And I think also all Arnold Schwarzenegger movies probably, or most, owe a debt of gratitude to the Dirty Harry movies. Yeah. Now, this is definitely going to be a late night movie review because Brendan gets tired after 10:30. So, you know, we'll be a bit off topic and meandering. We're not going to be handling this in a very structured way, I think. So I don't know, Adam, what did you think of this movie? What was your reaction to it?
Initially, not good. The first few scenes are really super formulaic, and they're honestly pretty stupid. I mean, the scene with Harry driving the car into the store, it was just like this. This is just, I don't know. It felt. Yeah, it just felt like from a comedy, and usually like when in previous movies, Harry, even when he does something crazily violent, there's at least usually some kind of sense to it, or it's a smart idea, whereas this just felt like, I don't know, it just felt stupid. And it just, it's like then he gets chewed out by his boss. It's like, whose side am I supposed to be on in this? Because I'm completely agreeing with the boss. Even though I can tell he's supposed to be an asshole.
The $14,000 in damage that he did.
Yeah, I'm just like, that's all quite reasonable. I don't know what Harry's getting upset about here. But yeah, I don't. It's like I said, initially I was just like, it just felt like they'd kind of lost it. But once we got into the scenes with Tyne Daly, when she entered, she was really good, and I felt they were playing off each other well. Things started to get interesting, and then we have what's his name? Albert Popwell. It's like he's really great in this. You mentioned he was going to have a bigger part in this movie, and his part's really interesting. It added a good element to it. So there was a lot. I think, basically the whole Tyne Daly plot worked really well. I mean, at least her character was really good. The villains started good. Like, I felt like during the initial robbery scene where they steal the weapons, I was kind of like, wow, this is kind of an interesting group. After that scene, they're just kind of there. We never really connect with them again as characters. I felt during the later scene on Alcatraz, I just didn't feel connected to who was who. It's like I'm just like, okay, it's that guy, it's that guy. They're shooting whatever, but so on the villain scale, I'd say it's in the middle. It was better than the last villains, but they're clearly not in Scorpio.
Scorpio is a very high bar in this series. I'd be interested. I'm going to be very interested if we get to the next movie, what your reaction is to those villains.
Okay.
But yeah, this is probably, like, first movie aside, because that's a whole other level of movie. I think this is my favorite in the Dirty Harry series. I think. This is one of two that are the favorite, but I don't want to get into the other one because we're going to continue watching the series possibly.
Sure.
But I think it's because, and I kind of agree with you, like that the opening scene where they steal the oil truck thing, that felt almost.
Try to skip over that scene. Yeah.
Go ahead. The beginning of the movie almost has. Well, the whole series at this point is kind of more fun than, like, high bar. Do you know what I mean?
It is. So, well, it's kind of weird, actually. I mean, we'll get to the ending of the movie, but tonally, it's a little all over the place.
It is. But what I'm getting at is it's a little similar to the Friday the 13th movies for me. Do you know what I mean? Where I like the series and there are some high points and low points. But that opening scene, I don't know why that opening scene it reminds me of a Friday the 13th movie for some strange reason. I think because
there's definitely, that could be a horror movie opening. I mean, you could definitely go there from just that scene and knowing nothing else. But
now the flower shop, I actually kind of like the flower shop scene only because that obviously at this point, like every Dirty Harry movie, this has to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is something.
There needed to be a scene like that. Yeah. I just wish it had been something
different.
More clever. Was he
eating this time around? I can't remember. I saw it again.
I don't think he was eating, but yeah, I mean, like you say, it is definitely a precursor of the whole Arnold Schwarzenegger line. It's like, oh, he wants a car, I will give him a car. But but it just, I don't know. It just didn't work for me in this context.
Okay. But, and you're right. This one is totally all over the place because I think it uses more humor than the other.
And the humor, I don't mind humor. I just didn't feel like this was a good joke for this movie, necessarily.
Oh no, I'm not saying with that one. What I'm saying is generally, though, the overall, I think the movie uses more humor than say the first, especially the first. I mean, the first one is not a lot of humor. Any humor is like unintentional or there, a byproduct of something terrible happening in the first one.
There is real humor in the first one. I mean, you've got kind of the jokes between the cops and stuff like that.
And there's like, I'm all broken up about that man's rights, but it's all grounded in something. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's different.
It's real. It's people making jokes in the moment in the story. There's not. Yeah, it's not a higher level of comedy.
There's not like the whole thing at the end of the movie where after the aftermath where the the captain shows up and he's like, we've got your money, we've exceeded we've agreed to your demands, and like the whole situation, it's like a comedic, there's a comedic rhythm to that is more like of a 1980s movie variety than do you know what I mean?
At the end of the movie you're talking about?
The end of the movie. But I'm saying there's a lot of that in the movie. But
there is. And it's a very dark comedic moment there at the end. It's just like pure because the ending really impressed me. Like I said, it's both funny and dark at the same time. Funny isn't even really the right word.
But you know what I'm getting at. But that's the thing. What I like about this movie is it does a really good job, I think, of balancing comedy and seriousness in scenes like that where
a lot of the movie does. I agree, and that's kind of why the beginning I'm just like, ooh, you put this at the front of your movie. It's like there's a lot of good. I honestly, if this had been like me just watching these on my own, kind of going through, I might have after that first flower shop scene been like, series has lost it. Because you'd sold me on this. Well, I was going to have to review it anyway, but because you sold me on it, I was like, okay, I'm going to carry through, and it was totally worth it. I'm glad I kept watching.
And the beginning of the movie, I can see where you would be that way because it's got the opening scene with the oil truck. I think it was an oil truck. And then it's got the scene with the guy faking a heart attack at the restaurant. And then it's got the flower shop.
That scene. That was a funny scene.
Okay.
It felt like a legitimate. It was. I mean, it was definitely more comedic than something you'd expect in the first movie, but it still felt in character.
Yeah. The guy, what did he say? He enjoyed the ride in the ambulance, and he was mad that Harry interrupted. It was funny too because when I was expecting that character to be a recurring character in the movie after that scene. Yeah, the first
could have done that.
It's probably for the best that they didn't.
No, it could have gotten silly, but
the other
it worked as a one-off.
The other reason I think it works is at this point they're the first, like, this movie has more heart to it than most of the other Dirty Harry movies. Like, even the first one it doesn't have heart. It's not meant to. It's not it's not that kind of movie.
No,
but this has heart, and that's why I think the ending is so effective.
The ending really landed. I was surprised. I actually, because I do think I saw this back decades and decades ago. I really didn't remember anything as far as plot, but that there was just this piece of the ending in my head through the whole movie. I was like, oh, so when I started watching, like, oh shit, I think she dies in this.
Yeah.
And I was kind of dreading it. I was like hoping I'm wrong because I really like this character, but I'm like, I don't think she's gonna make it.
Yeah. And the other thing too about this one is it's similar to the first one in that the Dirty Harry character evolves over the course of the movie, whereas in the first one, it's more of like a, in a way, a dark turn downward into some, and this one is, they set it up where it's almost like they set it up like they want the audience to be rooting for Harry being against these changes to the police department, but then as he has experience with the female partner, it's at least in her case, maybe he doesn't, his views aren't
movies, looking at these movies from that angle is always very conflicted. It seems like there's so many things going on in these movies that it is always hard to go with one ideological line that it's towing.
Well, that's part of the fun of the film, I think it's kind of doing that on purpose. Do you know what I mean?
I think you're right to an extent. I mean, well, some of it obviously is just Hollywood being somewhat timid. Like I said, the whole thing of they're this group is just criminals. Actually, they've got this whole ideological traffic. We're going to play with them being some underground group, but no, they're really criminals. So you don't have to worry about what their ideologies are, and there's no chance you'll agree with them. So it's a nice, safe way of doing this plot line.
Well, there was also like kind of something funny about it too, because they start out as like what the People's Liberation Army. They're just some kind of
it's funny too. It works. I'm not. It does. It is. I mean, it works in of itself. The fact that it's also a nice, safe way to do this kind of a plot in a Hollywood movie doesn't change the fact that people that are using ideology just to make a buck being criminals is a thing that happens. So,
well, I just like that they're kind of like almost anarchists, and then in the end they're actually capitalists. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the but also it kind of is a callback to Scorpio, because that was Scorpio's whole thing was he wanted money. Remember, he wanted them to give him money and like a plane ride somewhere.
Yeah. That felt very familiar from the first one.
But one of the other things I liked about this movie, number one, they start with DiGiorgio, who we've seen in all the movies. He's been in every movie up to this point. He's now Harry's partner at the start of the film. And then he gets killed in that scene that you were talking about when we first see the terrorist group stealing the weapons. He gets stabbed. And he dies in the hospital later in like kind of a somewhat dramatic scene with Harry. I liked that this wasn't like part 2 where they introduce a new friend that we didn't know about for Dirty Harry to have him killed later on.
Yes.
This is a guy that we've come to like, and we, you have, like, he's been in enough Dirty Harry movies now, and he's been enough of the scenery that it matters when he dies. And also, it's the first time we get to see one of Harry's partners die before he gets a new partner. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's all within the film. I thought that was different and interesting, and also just gave it a little more weight than it otherwise. And also, DiGiorgio's like the last person you really want to see killed, because he's like the guy who's like slowed down because he just ate too much pasta, or you know, you know what I mean? He's this character that you just don't want him to die. You know, you want the lieutenant to die or somebody else. You know, like,
as soon as I saw him riding in the car with Harry at the beginning of the movie, I was like, "Oh, you're gonna do that?" I just knew he was dead the second I saw him sitting there.
But it was you know. So I like that. I also like, you know, just the banter in some of it. Like Harry gets demoted to personnel after the flower shop scene, right? He gets demoted to personnel, and he says, you know, and he's like, personnel, that's for assholes. And the captain's like, I was in personnel for 10 years. You know, just all of these. Again, it's very reminiscent of the stuff that we became accustomed to in the 80s, but I feel like it was kind of still being shaped at this point. Do you know what I mean? The you know, and there's a lot of banter like that. There's the what is it? The 7-pointed suppository when he hands his badge to the.
I mean, well, you already talked about where his partner gets killed. The hospital scene. I mean, that is just so archetypal as far as things you would see over and over and over again when we were young.
And also it's this staunch masculinity from the 70s where DiGiorgio, you know, asks Harry to stay, and he puts his hand on Harry's hand, and like it's not a tender moment. You know what I mean? It's like Harry is not, he almost bristles at, you know, even though he's being there to support him, and he, you know, he obviously is moved. There's this discomfort with the intimacy that goes with it, you know.
It's handled well, actually, I think.
Yeah, I like that scene. It felt believable to me. It felt like, you know, it wasn't. Sometimes those scenes can get too sappy and too perfect. You know what I mean? And a lot of times people don't react exactly the right way. And there was just enough of that discomfort with it on Harry's part, but you could still tell that he was moved. That I thought that it worked, but he still had a job to do too. So he's kind of like, you know, it's not like, you know, I feel like in a modern movie, we would have had the funeral, and then there would have been, you know what I mean? But we didn't have to have all that in a Dirty Harry movie.
No, this movie is really short too. I think it's an hour and a half. I was at like one point I paused it. I saw the time, and like, there's only half an hour left in this movie. Oh my God. It's, I mean, this movie actually, I'm usually for movies being economical. I was like, this movie, I actually could have used some more detail in spaces, but not where you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like you say, I think that was ideal. But I think you may have gotten a little more out of the movie if we had seen a little more of what was going on with the criminals. Because, like I said, it felt like there was going to be more going on with these characters during that initial robbery scene, and then it just, I don't know. I felt during the second half I disconnected with them.
I some of the stuff I liked, like I like their connection to the church, that church that had the oh, go ahead.
Well, I was saying that I mean, there was the connection to the church, but it was pretty tenuous as far as how it all fit together. But go ahead.
Well, it was how Harry finds out. It was like the way he finds out where. Yeah. But also just the fact that what I liked was it set up this idea that there are these true believers that are connected to the organization.
Yeah.
And also.
True. That's a good point.
The priest there felt like that's a type of priest that existed back in the 70s and 80s that you don't see so much anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like a counterculture type priest, you know, where he, you know, he despised Harry from the moment he met him. Do you know what I mean? And didn't hesitate to say it. And there was, and again, I think the other thing that I like about the terrorists, even though I agree with you, we don't get like a Hans Gruber out of the group. Do you know what I mean? Like the leader gets kind of close. He's got a striking look, but there's really not, it's not like he has like a moment where he explains himself or where we know what's motivating him.
I didn't even need that, but I just feel like because there was kind of this interplay between those people during that robbery scene, and it just felt like there could have been some internal drama between those people.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. It just felt like it was building to something like
the
that.
internal drama was the guy wanted to take the body of the girl that died. I think they were a couple. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And the other guy was like, no, come on, and so that was the extent of it. I feel like with the gang, the one thing I will say about them that I think they do well is a lot of stuff like that was handled very efficiently, and I think the way that they did characterization mainly came down to like what kind of headband a person was wearing and what kind of, do you know what I mean? Which is silly, but it also can work.
It works.
It
works.
But
I'm only bringing this up because these characters seem really interesting in that scene. I'm like, ooh, I would have liked to see more. So as a criticism of the movie, it's it's not much. It's me saying, wow, I was kind of fascinated to see more of what was going on here. So,
well, I think you're right. I mean, I think they don't get a moment like Big Ed Mustafa gets. Do you know what I mean? That was a really interesting exchange between Dirty Harry and another character who's part of this world that he inhabits. That felt kind of like an exchange you might see between a villain and a hero in a movie, even though that's not really what Big Ed Mustafa isn't really an antagonist of any kind in the film. He's more of a red herring for the captain to get focused on than anything else. And he also helps Harry a little bit. But I thought, so I don't know, maybe that was the reason why we didn't get that. Maybe they felt you know what I mean?
It's true. Yeah. I mean, excising the Mustafa plot wouldn't be worth giving more detail to it, because that is it's only 2 scenes in the movie, but they're 2 really good scenes.
Now, and did you see how that scene might add credibility to my Albert Popwell quintuplet theory that I was musing about?
Yeah.
Because he knows Harry, because he says, I know, he says, oh, I know about you, but Harry doesn't know about him. So I'm thinking, well, if he's connected with the other 2, Popwell characters, maybe that's how he knows about Harry. So one of these days I'll make my Albert Popwell fan fiction for Dirty Harry, where there's this whole
I want like a whole chart, like with strings on the wall and everything too. Well, you gotta go all out with this.
If we get to the next movie, then you'll get to see like the complete arc of the Albert Popwell arc over Dirty Harry. It is actually an arc. It's like, because his role grows in each movie, and it becomes more interesting in each movie, and I would argue more he becomes more of a good person in each one. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe not. I don't know. Maybe the bank robber was a better guy than the family. But
I think I'm definitely up for the next one, just to kind of see the full Popwell arc. I might be fine with skipping the Deadpool. We'll see. Maybe I'll go that far. Maybe I won't. But I think I'm going to have to do one more.
Deadpool is definitely. I mean, Deadpool. Here's what I'll say. I'll say this in favor of Deadpool. Deadpool is not boring. That's it. It has a lot of flaws.
That'll get me to watch.
It's
not boring. I could stand stupid or any other issue, but boring is the thing that.
It is the most bizarre Dirty Harry movie, though. It's the most bizarre Dirty Harry movie. Okay. I'll have
to watch it. You've convinced me. We'll do the whole series.
What did you think of Ms. Gray in the personnel room when they're interviewing the candidates?
I don't know. It was I didn't really think a lot about Ms. Gray, to be honest. I mean, I was paying more attention to Tyne Daly's character at that point.
Well, that was I like that whole scene, and part of it is Ms. Gray, part of it is Tyne Daly, because it's sort of the scene where Harry's interest in the possibility of this female police officer serving is piqued, by her responses. Like you can see the changes going on in his eyes. But I just love the woman who played Ms. Gray just did such a great job of being this.
She was very good.
Yeah. She's just the whole winnowing the Neanderthals out of the department thing. And the fact that when she says that and they kind of close up on Harry, you realize he's got like kind of a Neanderthal like skull. Even, you know what I mean? Just the it just was such a perfect scene. And also it was like I don't know, it was just more like they've had these exchanges between Harry and the bureaucrats in the past, but this one, I don't know. Number one, it's a return to form because in the last movie, Harry was,
I agree with that.
You know, the bureaucracy was actually in agreement with Harry last movie. That was kind of the problem, right? And
that was the problem with the second one. The second one, everything felt unbelievable as far as his butting heads with the other people above him, and whereas in this we were back to everything making sense. Like I said, that's one reason I didn't like that early scene with the flower shop, is it's like, well, Harry can't be completely stupid if you're going to bring back the realism on the side of bureaucracy. It's,
but I just, that conflict is fun. And also then he gets to do the Shetland pony thing, which I thought that worked. That worked for a number one. It was just funny. It was just like a funny situation and scene. But also I really enjoyed Tim Daly's, reaction to the story, where she's obviously amused by it, and I think that's like the first moment where she kind of gets charmed by Dirty Harry. Do you know like that?
I think it's her response is perfect because it's both amused, totally deadpan, serious answer at the same time, which is exactly the right answer to give. It's like, okay, I see your joke here, but boom, I'm going to give you the most perfect legal answer in the world. And that was great. I thought that really set the character up well.
And that did a good job too of establishing that Harry wasn't just joking for joke's sake. There was actually like that. It's actually one of the things that maybe is a slight disconnect from the first movie, where in the first movie he obviously doesn't have this grasp of the law that he has in this movie, where he he's
that's true. Or he just took a night class between the movies.
It could be.
Because he realized he had to brush up on his law knowledge.
But yeah, so that scene's one of my favorites in the film. That and the Big Ed Mustafa one, I thought that was that was just a great character. That was a great character, and the whole way I love the way that scene was done too, because they go into, what is it? Uhuru, is that the name of his group that was in like the shop? He goes in there, he gets the information. Big Ed Mustafa basically agrees to help him in exchange for like him kind of helping one of his guys got in trouble or something. It was a really interesting exchange between like a police officer and a guy who's got ties to the criminal underworld, and seeing them kind of do like a give and take type thing. And then he leaves, and I love the way that they drive away, and then the camera pans back, and you see the other police coming to arrest Big Ed Mustafa. And it's kind of like the bumbling captain who's just kissing the ass of the mayor. And I don't know, I thought that, because I remember, like you said, one of your big complaints last time was sort of that the Hal Holbrook character didn't really have a good reason for being against Harry since he agreed with him. And in this one, I loved the foil of the captain against Harry. I thought it worked really well. It also felt so like so many movies have been based off of this dynamic since. Like the jump from the flower shop to the like $14,379. I've been on the phone with the mayor, and there was some of that in the first movie, but this felt like much more punchy and much more like you would get in like a Lethal Weapon movie or something, So, I thought that was, but that scene especially, just the way that we immediately go to the captain leading his thing, and he's completely off the mark, but the mayor then like is going to give them commendations and all, just the way that it leads to all that. And then it just like kind of effortlessly leads to Harry being on suspension. And so he has to kind of work off the radar. and that's the moment. It's very brief actually, but that's where we kind of get the quasi love story between him and and what was Tim Daly's character's name? Kate Moore.
Moore. That's it.
So it was I don't know. It was a really, I thought, and it was also a really fitting romance because it didn't pan out. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't clear where it was going. It was just clear that there was a spark between them.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that element worked perfectly. But yeah, I mean, it adds to the ending of the movie too. It's surprising how little she is actually in the movie, to be honest.
Yeah.
But every scene she's in, she is just boom. It just works very well. So the movie works despite that.
Well, there's like that whole chase scene where she's running around with the bomb in the briefcase that she doesn't know she has.
Yeah.
That scene too. That thing I like about that scene is the music. There's like this jazzy music that's almost playful and comedic. So the scene feels really fun, even though it's like a tense. There's a lot of tension in it, and there's like this this extended roof. It's a two song scene. Like they play two different songs over the course of the chase. That's how long it seems like. It's one of the longest foot chases I've seen in a film. But it ends with this like crazy situation where like the guy falls through a sunroof into a porno shoot. And again, this is something else that I think feels very like a lot of movies have aped this. Like I think of that scene in Commando where Arnold Schwarzenegger has the fight with Coke in the motel and he's smashing into the room and he smashes into a room and there's like a couple having sex in a bed. It was like like that felt like almost the same reaction that the actors in this had to the guy falling through the roof, and it was that sort of thing where just the characters burst into the wrong type of situation.
Yeah, I think that was probably already a cliche by the time this movie came along. I would think, but I can't think of specific examples. So
you're probably right. Like it,
I'm not knocking it. I'm saying it. I mean, it's a tried and true formula that just always works.
Though I will say, to truly do it that way, it would have had to have been another movie within the past. When did they start opening up to like R ratings and things like that? It was in the mid 60s, right? What do you remember the year?
When they started opening. When they started
like having like R-rated content in movies. Do you know what I mean? Like when the
I don't know. I couldn't give you a date on that.
And I mean in American movies, because obviously there's a difference between like American and English or European. But if it was like if this movie was made in like the 50s, it would have been like a couple in with two beds.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this being an actual porn movie is an extreme example, but I feel like it's probably like a silent movie where something's.
Oh I think you're right. But the thing is, I think if people watch that Commando scene, they'll see that that's really similar to this one.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, I'm not arguing that it isn't, because like I as I said with the last movie, there was like a scene from Miller's Crossing where I'm like, they totally
like
got this shot from that.
It was the one where he shoots the guy through the wall.
Through the wall,
right?
yeah.
So I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I think the other thing too that I like about this is it's a return to Dirty Harry as like a dinosaur within the department. And again, we kind of cover this, but that the admins kind of want to get rid of, or, that wasn't present in the second movie so much. His problem was that he was almost not enough of a dinosaur in the second movie. And in this one, we have more of that. So I thought that was good. But yeah, and I don't know. I think it also just felt more reminiscent of the first movie to me, even though it had its own unique qualities.
I mean, the return to form comment I feel is true overall. I mean, it's not the first movie, because as we talked about when we reviewed the first movie, to really take in the first movie, you have to treat it as its own thing, with no sequels, and that's really the only way it has a real effect. But this comes closer to because the first one the second one was fine, but it made a lot of mistakes, more mistakes than this, really.
Yeah.
Because like I said, the things I complain most about this movie are right at the beginning of the movie, and they're easy to forget once the movie gets rolling. So it's not a big problem.
Yeah, and um, I think that the stuff that's similar to the first movie is more like beats, like the whole thing where there's a ransom and he has to go off radar to deal with the problem himself because the mayor and everybody, or not the mayor, because the mayor's the one that's kidnapped in this case, but the
Yeah,
lieutenant and the captain are going about it the wrong way, so he has to
yeah,
go handle it on its own. But and like you said, I think the ending is really effective. It's like a
yeah.
Stephen Chow movie effective. Do you know what I mean? Like at the end of those Stephen
Like a
Chow,
what?
like a Stephen Chow movie. You know how like at the end of a Stephen Chow movie, they're moving, but there's like a bit of humor. It's just this very delicate balance that he somehow manages to achieve, where like it can move people to tears and make them laugh at the same time. And this kind of has a similar thing where
Yeah, because I mean, it is a good ending where, I mean, at the point where he's walked away from the mayor, walks over to her body, he's standing there. That was a good ending.
yeah.
And then the helicopter shows up, and you're like, boom! It's a great ending at
Yeah.
that point. I mean, it is a truly great movie ending.
And
It's
that
like,
and that helicopter scene is so delicate because that could have like that humor could have disrupted the mood of
yeah,
Harry, like obviously having these emotions about her just having died, and also the way that scene is shot with her on the ground and him standing, that's just a really good shot.
yeah,
But somehow the humor of the helicopter scene it just hammers home like the disconnect between Harry and the administration, like just it adds to it rather than take away from it. It's
well, the joke itself, yeah, well, the joke itself is a tragic joke.
yeah,
So it only makes it more of a tragedy by putting this joke on top of it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it doesn't ruin anything. It makes the sad part better by
yeah,
by doing that.
yeah. It's definitely the case. It's definitely like
Yeah.
and again, it's also it's heavily foreshadowed, even though you're still kind of surprised. Do you know what I mean? Like when he
Yeah,
first meets her,
yeah.
he talks about it, and she says, "Well, it's my ass and my dumb luck." It's so it's clearly stated that this is going to happen. And I don't know. And she also has like a really heroic sort of ending where Harry has to respect her as a police officer at the end. Do you know what I mean? Like he can't not because she saved his life. So it's and just it's similar to the first movie's ending where there's this tragedy to it. Like you were saying, there's like this tragedy.
Yeah, well, you're going back to it like him foreshadowing it, but of course the way he foreshadows it is like, oh, if you get killed, you're going to get me killed. But it's like, nope, she gets killed saving his life.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a turnaround on that. But yeah, it's very effective. I was very impressed with the ending of this movie.
And the ending also, like you said, like Tim Daly is so she's got so much charisma in this movie that you really like her and you don't want her to die when that happens. Like if it was some of the other partners have been fine, but they didn't have the level of charisma that she had. Do you know what I mean? They were perfectly good actors in good roles.
She is easily the most charismatic partner out of the three movies I've watched so far. So I was very impressed.
And also that just the fact that that they had the chemistry they had. It was a very like this is a nobody really talks about the chemistry between Clint Eastwood and Tim Daly in this movie that much. Like, I mean, when they talk about the movie, they do, but it's not like one of these things that it comes up when you're talking about actors who had good chemistry. And I think it's one of the best examples of chemistry between two actors where if you didn't have that, the ending wouldn't work. Like the chemistry is so important for that ending having the weight. And there's something I don't know, just really charming about the whole moment they have where she's like drinking the apple juice with him. Do you know what I mean? You know, that whole moment just really worked. And also the scene where she's kind of like, where she's being very playful with him with like, using a lot of innuendo in some of the language that she's using, but also showing a lot of intelligence in the way she does it. I thought, and he's kind of bristling a little bit the way he bristled at to Giorgio. It's a similar type of reaction, but she's not really backing off. Do you know what I mean? I thought that was a charming scene.
It's the relationship is handled really well because it's. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What were you going to say?
I don't remember, but it was just, I probably wasn't going anywhere. But I just think that that's what makes the movie good, is those two characters. I mean, there's other things in the film that make it good, but it's to me, it's just one of the most enjoyable Dirty Harry movies to watch. I can go back and rewatch it. The second one,
chemistry is the thing that makes a movie rewatchable more than anything. If like the people in that movie have chemistry, you just put it on, and I mean that would make this movie rewatchable by itself.
And that's why this one I think feels more like a buddy cop movie than the other ones, because she feels more like a buddy in the movie. Do you know what I mean?
The partners didn't seem important in the other, really. I mean, they were important, but they weren't important. I mean, she's central. It's like without that you can't remove her from this story and still have the same story. Whereas I feel like you probably could have cut those other partners out to some extent.
Yeah, well, and like the first one even leaves midway through the movie almost, right? And the second one dies in an explosion in his mailbox. So, it's... and the second one was good. Go ahead.
I actually got a little worried in this movie because I didn't remember it very well. Like I said, I wasn't sure if she died or whatever, but there is a part in the middle where you don't see her for a while. And it started to cross my mind. I'm like, oh, is she done? Like, after like with that last little talk they have, is that it? Yeah. But she did come back, which of course meant she died. So good and bad.
And and also it's a great scene on Alcatraz. It's just it was a really good use of the area that the movie is set.
Yeah, I was on Alcatraz in August, so it was cool. I was just like, oh wow, there's the social hall. Cool.
This is like a good movie. Like this, next to Escape from Alcatraz, I think are two good movies to watch back to back. Do you know what I mean? Watch this, then watch Escape from Alcatraz. Like if you're gonna have like a Clint Eastwood night, but I don't know. I'm just very fond of this one, and it's also in a way that's like, it's different from my fondness to the first one, because the first one is so serious and such a it's just such well crafted movie, and this one is more in the realm of just, I don't know, I just have a lot of fun when I watch this one, and this isn't because the first one I feel is a genuine serious movie, whatever that means. Whereas, but you know what I mean. There's like
this is more clearly in the entertainment realm, but it's still done really well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and again, I think the ending is what really what seals it. So. I don't know, any other thoughts on the movie? I don't know if there's anything I failed to bring up.
No, I think I've pretty much tapped out all my notes here. So
okay, yeah, I think I have tapped out all my notes too. I think that's everything. I'd say if I'm grading all of the movies, I won't give them numerical grades or whatever, but I think the first one is definitely like the best movie. The second one I like. This one I really like a lot. You know what I mean? This one is like, it's not as good as the first movie, but as a third film in a series, it's wildly entertaining, and it's got a lot of heart, and it does some different things with the series in terms of the tone and stuff like that, that it just is like a refreshing moment. If you're looking at the series as sort of like a journey, I think that this is can you imagine if this movie was just a repeat not in terms of plot, but a repeat of the second one in terms of style and tone, you wouldn't be excited for the fourth movie in the sequence, I think. If it,
No, no, especially if it opened the way this one opened, but then had this kind of level of quality of the second one. I would have been like, okay, I'm kind of done with the series now. But yeah, this definitely was a step up from the previous one.
And I think the next movie is probably what you would describe as like the most Dirty Harry movie, if that makes sense. It might even be described as a regression from, like in every movie's like this where you don't quite know where Harry's going to be psychologically. But and also I think Clint Eastwood directs the next movie, which is another reason that it's in. And it doesn't look anything like a Clint Eastwood movie that we think of today with, there's a style.
Not expecting that, no.
But it's interesting that he directs it. So it's probably more, I've always taken the fourth movie to be more, that's how Clint Eastwood imagines Dirty Harry to be. That's his vision of the character. So that's a good one to sort of have to compare to the first one, maybe. But yeah, so I guess we'll leave it there. And I don't know. Yeah. I've been watching these on Amazon. I don't know where you've been watching them, but if people want to see them, they are available to rent and buy on Amazon.
I forget where I got this from. I don't know. I got all my services on Apple TV. I just go Apple TV. Where is it? Just bring it up on whatever I've got done.
All right. Yeah. I what I've been doing is I've been buying them every time we've been doing this, so that now that I'll have them hopefully forever. I don't know. Maybe Amazon will take them away. I noticed Amazon took away one of my Iron Maiden albums once, so I don't know if they'll do that.
I think this was HBO, actually. I think I got it through HBO Max. I think that's where I got it, in case anyone's wondering. So I know I didn't pay for this one. So, well, I mean, obviously I paid my monthly subscription, but I didn't have to pay a rental fee.
But I think these movies are worth the rental or the purchase. I think that definitely it's culturally relevant. Like Dirty Harry is referenced so much in like pop culture that it's just useful to see them, just so you know what's being referenced some of the time. Do you know what I mean? These are
very much classic action movies. I feel like they are. I'm glad that I'm watching them. It's like I haven't seen any of these since I was a kid, so it's really, really fascinating to go back and look at these.
Well, and also when we were kids, it's pretty similar for me. Where I went on a Dirty Harry marathon like over the summer or something. But when I was a kid watching these, it was always on the TV, like the old screen TV. So you didn't know, like I don't know if people understand, but like things were not done widescreen on those TVs ever until like the late 80s, I think. So. And even then, you weren't going to get a Dirty Harry movie like that usually. So you had no idea how well crafted the first Dirty Harry movie was, because the edges of the frame were completely chopped off, and it was sometimes squished, and so it looked funny. Do you know what I mean? You just didn't know that there was craftsmanship in the movie.
No, that's true. I mean, it's like all those westerns that Clint Eastwood was in, like Good to Bad and Ugly and stuff. It's like, you watch those on those TV screens with just the picture crushed down to fit, and it was just, I had no idea those movies were so wonderful looking until they came out on DVD. Yeah. Well, that was the first time you could really get things letter screened on a regular basis.
And like the same with like old martial arts movies, like old Shaw Brothers movies. Like you see, like you saw Come Drink With Me on TV or whatever. Those movies looked kind of squished up and the frame was wrong. You didn't know, like, oh wow, when you see it in widescreen, like this is gorgeous, like this is these are all composed shots. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a very different different experience, I think.
And a lot of times too, the prints that whatever ones would end up these basically prints that would end up being shown on TV, late at night or the afternoon or whenever you were watching it, they weren't good quality prints anyway. So you're watching these bad prints on these terrible old TVs that we grew up with, and nothing really looks very good.
The thing I remember is how hard it was to watch night scenes. Night scenes always were really difficult. And in a movie like this, This one didn't have too many night scenes that I recall. I don't know if it had any actually. No, it did have one or two. But the other ones had way more. They're already hard enough to see on those old TVs. Like, you could not see what was going on in a night scene half the time.
No.
And like you said, the films, they were often grainy and faded, and
and then if you weren't watching on an old videotape anyway, where it was even worse.
Yeah.
So.
And it also had the effect of making, like, if you were watching the movie in 1984 and the film came out like in 1976 or 1973, like these did, it made 1976 look so long ago in just like 1984. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember seeing movies like this and being like, wow, this looks like it was made ages ago. And it was like not even 10 years ago half the time. And if you think like, well, what was made in our age that was just like 10 years ago? You know, and you're like, you would be like, that'd be ridiculous for it to look that shoddy. But often on these old TVs with the prints that they did. So, you know, that was it was not a great time to be a movie watcher, unfortunately. Well, it depends, because it was like the one good thing is that these things were still being shown regularly. Do you know what I mean? That was like maybe the, you know.
Yeah, they still are though on cable. If you're watching stuff like Turner Classic Movies and stuff like that, I mean, there's still a lot of good old movies that are cycling around.
Okay.
But
and I will say this, I could be wrong, but I seem to remember that more movies were re-released in the theaters when we were kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember going to see older movies at the movie theater more.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
There were definitely, well, it was really videotapes that kind of killed off the revival theater market. Like, when I was single digits in age, it was like revival movies were the thing. It's like I saw all the old Disney movies would play in theaters all the time. You could always count on something, you know, Pinocchio would come up, and then, you know, the No Mobile would be on the next week. And
No, I remember my aunt took us to see Snow White once at the movie theater.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, something like that. But I also remember, like, you know, movies like this coming out in movie theaters. And also, I think there were more drive-thrus too. So you would have, you know, drive-thrus. I feel, I could be wrong, say I was so young when I went to the drive-thrus, but I feel like those were often movies that were not recent when you went to a drive-thru, that they were often older movies. I could be wrong.
But yeah, you would definitely get older movies at the drive-thru, no question. But
and also I remember people just having projectors of their own that they would, you know what I mean? Like, I remember that being a thing. Like, you know, like, I mean, it was often for like a 8mm camera or 16, whatever, you know, you have for a home camera.
Yeah.
But I remember watching movies that way. Like, I saw Nosferatu on a projector as a kid at a church. You know, like so, you know.
Schools and churches and stuff would always have a projector and have like movie events, and it was really exciting to be able to watch a movie.
Yeah. Well, it was at school. It was always, are we going to get like the crappy slide presentation with the beeps, or are we going to get a projected movie? Because the
wonderful clackety clack noise.
Yeah, the slide presentation was sad. It was such stagnant media. It was actually depressing to participate in watching a slide. Do you remember those? They had the beeps and everything.
I remember
those. Those were just they just made your stomach sink. Just being involved.
Well, I don't know. You could still sleep through them at least. So they had that going.
I could never get over how horrible those were. Even as a kid, I remember just those bothered me. They bothered me a great deal. The movies I liked. I remember when I was a kid, one of the movies they had us watch was a movie. It was at the height of Arnold Schwarzenegger mania, I think. And I remember they said, we're going to show you a movie about the strongest man who ever lived. And it was I was living in California at the time, and it was what it turned out to be was some guy who was important to California history, some frontiersman who I didn't care about at all. That stuff never really interested me. But it was just like his adventures on the frontier. And so I went in thinking, like, I think the teachers even said, like, he's stronger than Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's the toughest man who ever lived. And, you know,
they oversold it.
They oversold it big time. Though there was a really good scene with the guy. he went for like weeks without water. Not weeks, but he was like thirsty and hungry. And he was walking through the desert, and he eventually finds his men or whatever, and they give him a canteen full of water. He just guzzles it down and immediately vomits up everything in his stomach. And it was just such something about being hydrated and then suddenly losing it like that. Just, because your body's not used to drinking water. It's been so long. That scene always stuck with me, but a horrible movie other than that. So now that we've really gone on
now that we've reviewed this whatever this movie is called.
I still don't know the name. I'm sure somebody, if one of our listeners knows the name of this movie, definitely let me know, because and it's even possible I'm putting a bunch of movies together. Like maybe that vomit scene was from a whole other movie that I've just affixed to this one because it was so long ago, but I'd be curious.
I think that would make a good Horror Express theme where it's going to do a whole month of vomit movies. That'll be the theme.
That's certainly something that we could do.
We could do that, actually. I could put that together very easily. But yeah, I really don't recommend it. I retract my suggestion.
Now that you thought it through.
I thought it through. I'm like, let's not do that.
So, all right, we'll let you go. And until next time, we will talk to you later.